And something that my government is going to do is to use all of the powers of the federal government, including the emergency powers,
Marc Carney, not a good look, man. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. We've got Marc Carney's team throwing out a guy who went to his event in Saskatchewan because he didn't bow to Marc Carney, because he wasn't an obedient follower. We got Justin Trudeau running his mouth in Brussels, saying all sorts of stuff, complaining about Trump and saying Ukraine will be the one that decides when the Russia-Ukraine conflict ends. Meanwhile, we've actually got Donald Trump ending that conflict. It seems very likely. We also got all of the premiers, all of them, went to Washington at the same time to talk to Trump. The new street fentanyl czar has been appointed. We got more polling data. Let's jump into this. So first up here, this one modeled out by Sharia Teeth, the latest Ledger poll, still showing conservatives 186 versus 120 for the liberals. This is still a majority. We're seeing the Carney bump here. This will die off soon enough, especially people seeing exactly like with this video, who Marc Carney is, an authoritarian man who rules with an iron fist. And here's that poll here, the Ledger poll. Conservatives sitting at 40, liberals 31. I should note regarding polling, somebody messaged me. I'm not going to say which polling company it was. It wasn't Ecos. It was one of the trusted ones. And apparently for certain events and stuff, polling companies will take money to get results that people want. So I'd say take all of these with a grain of salt. We've got this here. It says the Toronto Star says it was a grave mistake to cut immigration levels to Canada because Canada needs more Canadians if we're going to successfully fight Trump. What a load of crap. We don't have enough houses. This is a disgraceful statement by the Toronto Star. And people posting the receipts here from the World event, the I'm not going to read that word, the unword, patients do not deserve ICU beds. That is absolutely insane and preposterous. What's also insane is this guy here, Justin Trudeau. Listen to this nonsense, running his mouth in Brussels.
There's not a snowball's chance in hell that Canada will ever be the 51st state. At the same time, from having worked with President Trump for close over 8 years now, I can tell.
Hear that little vibration there, inflection in his throat as he said that? He is scared of Trump. He's terrified. Don't worry, Justin, you're less than a month now before you're out the door.
Tell you that we have to take seriously what he says and make sure we're responding appropriately. And this is going to be tough, but we're going to double down on Canadian pride and standing up for each other.
This idiot got us in this position. We wouldn't have been in this position if it wasn't for Justin Trudeau and all his dirty crime syndicate connections, Chinese triads, Iranian regime, Mexican cartels. What a disgrace of a man. Next up, we got Marc Carney here, saying Canadians want change and they're showing up for it. Here's the rally he had. You can see all the old ladies who watch CBC showing up for Marc Carney. Look at this, Sheila Gunreid of Rebel News posting this. At this event in Kelowna, Marc Carney promises to abuse the emergency powers of the federal government to build green energy projects and take on the Americans.
And something that my government is going to do is to use all of the powers of the federal government, including the emergency powers of the federal government, to accelerate the major projects that we need in order to build this economy and take on the Americans.
What's with that weird, creepy little smile he did right there? See that little creepy Count Chocula there? I don't think so. I don't like this guy. I don't like this guy at all. Anyone who openly says they're going to use emergency powers, like, what the heck is this? Check out this one. The energy for Marc Carney is just electric. Once again, more grumpy old CBC watchers here. In our headline story here, this is the event in Saskatchewan where a guy registered. He wanted to see what Marc Carney was talking about because they're not filming these things. They're pretty secretive. He wanted to see what's going on here. So he decided to show up as a conservative. He registered for the Liberal Party. And Marc Carney's team is going through every single person, all their social media, and figure out who's who. They go through and, ruling with an iron fist, are throwing people out of the events. Carney's got a lawyer with him at these events that throws people out. They bring in the cops, they toss the guy out. That's what we have right here. This guy here is Marc Carney's lawyer. Says Saskatchewan was removed from Carney's event in Regina moments after he entered. A lawyer approached and questioned him about a Facebook post where he criticized Carney. The lawyer then revoked his Liberal Party membership and had the police remove him for trespassing.
I'm a lawyer, so I'm not going to. You should give this traitor a good.
We'll just take a look at his post here. It says, so a few weeks ago, I did something horrible. I signed up as a member of the Liberal Party of Canada. Why? Because I can't sit here and complain and not participate in this charade called democracy here in Canada. Because of this, I get emails now with updates. And this one I found rather interesting. Marc Carney, an unelected pawn that is being placed as the Liberal leader of Canada, is coming to Regina on February 11th. We should give this traitor a good old warm welcome to Saskatchewan.
Good old warm welcome. Referring to a member in good standing as a traitor, despite your failure to spell a lot of his work, is not okay. We're challenging your membership, sir, and I'm asking you to leave. And
we're joining this party by build our very accomplishment for many years.
What an absolute joke here. Carney getting his goons. He's got a lawyer with him and police to throw people out. And look how sad and empty this banquet is. Just a sad, lifeless event. Combining this with that other clip of him saying he will use the emergency powers to get whatever he wants done. People need to know who this guy is. He cannot be in power. He can't even be in power for 3 weeks. Carney, in my opinion, is dangerous to Canada. And jumping over to this story, so it seems very likely that the Ukraine-Russia conflict will be coming to a close because of Donald Trump.
The president spoke to President Putin of Russia. They spoke at length, and the president released a statement following that conversation in great detail. I can also confirm that the president just recently got off the phone with President Zelensky of Ukraine. His truth is as follows. I just spoke to President Zelensky of Ukraine. The conversation went very well. He, like President Putin, wants to make peace. We discussed a variety of topics having to do with the war, but mostly the meeting that is being set up on Friday in Munich, where Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio will lead the delegation. I am hopeful that the results of that meeting will be positive. It is time to stop this ridiculous war where there has been massive and totally unnecessary death and destruction. God bless the people of Russia and Ukraine. I myself just spoke to the president about these calls, and he told me to tell all of you they were very good calls. They were very positive, and the administration is wholeheartedly committed to a peace deal to end once and for all the Russia-Ukraine war.
Wow. Now, you might wonder, why is it taking Donald Trump to do this? I've mentioned it before. The people who make money on these world conflicts are the people like Lockheed Martin, Boeing, all these big defense contractors making hand over fist. And anyone in the chain of command who's connected to all those guys, getting kickbacks, all that kind of stuff. Seems quite possible that the whole Biden chain of command didn't want that conflict to end because their buddies were getting rich on the back end and there's kickbacks coming that way. Because suddenly Trump gets in and look, this conflict is nearly over. With that, we've got Captain Schmuck here running his mouth saying, Ukraine gets to decide what peace looks like. This is the same thing that Melanie Joly just said the other day.
One of the things Canada has been very clear about is that it is only Ukrainians that get to decide what is acceptable to them as an outcome of any peace negotiations. Obviously, people will have different perspectives around strategies, around positionings. Ukrainians get to decide what the outcome of that peace process must be.
Yesterday, I showed you guys Melanie Joly saying that Ukrainians should be joining NATO and Canada wants them to join NATO. Meanwhile, we've got America saying, Ukraine's not joining NATO.
The United States does not believe that NATO membership for Ukraine is a realistic outcome of a negotiated settlement. Instead, any security guarantee must be backed by capable European and non-European troops. If these troops are deployed as peacekeepers to Ukraine at any point, they should be deployed as part of a non-NATO mission, and they should not be covered under Article 5.
So basically, America's coming out here saying they're not going to be deploying troops to Ukraine. Now, with that, Donald Trump had a conversation with Vladimir Putin, and he's bringing back Marc Fogle. This was a school teacher who went over to Russia and had a small amount of the green Luigi in his pocket as a treatment for chronic back pain, and Russia put him in jail for 14 years. So he was into his third year of his sentence, and Trump got him out.
Mr. President. Marc Fogle. He looks good.
Imagine being locked up for 14 years for having a small amount of...
It brought me to my knees and it brought me to tears, but it was my energy, it was my being that kept me going that whole time.
It's quite something. So in exchange, Trump traded one of their cyber criminals that was in an American jail. On this episode of Far Off Ripoff, we've got $48,145 spent on empowering women's groups through hands-on small business and economic training. This one says it's at Port Vila, Vanuatu. That's right. Now, if you're not familiar, Vanuatu is a little island right here off the coast of Australia, north of New Zealand here. This is what we're talking about. Port Vila of this little island in the middle of Timbuk nowhere, $48,145. This was to empowering women's groups through hands-on small economic business. Why are we empowering women in this little middle of the nowhere country? This makes no sense. The population of this island is almost nothing. Like, this is basically the only settlement. There we go. Our money going here to empower people. Why? Smells like money laundering to me. It looks nice here, but why? We got this one posted by Brian Lilly. It says, every American politician you speak to in Washington, even Canada's friends, say dairy is a problem. They don't want to get rid of supply management, but they want access. And so they're asked about this today, if they would open up the dairy industry for the Americans to have something to negotiate with.
On dairy, even friends of Canada down here raise the issue of dairy every time. Are any of the premiers, yourself included, willing to start talking about dairy and not getting rid of supply management, because none of them say that, but they do say we're too restrictive. So if we've got to ask for something, are we willing to give anything on their biggest irritant?
The place to have those conversations is at the table in a review of the USMCA and a reconsideration of that agreement, because that's really where the last conversation ended and where we need to pick it back up to see what that negotiation is going to look like and what concessions are going to be made on both sides.
President Trump has said that the federal response...
No, I just want to say a few words on dairy. In Quebec, we are against changing the management of the offer. The reason why we have that is to protect our region, all right? So we don't give any subsidy to milk producers. So the only thing we do is we manage the offer, and it's a way to protect small farms in all the regions. So for us, it's not negotiable.
Not negotiable. How will we take away those equalization payments? This is not a fair situation here, guys. Quebec doesn't want to work with Canada, then there should be equalization payments going to them, which we can see here. So here's major transfer. Here's Quebec's transfer payments. You can see equalization right here. These are in billions of dollars. So $10 billion, 11, 13, 14 billion, 13 billion. Quebec gets a lot of money. So to claim that, oh, we don't want to give anything. I mean, we've got Yves Francois Blanchette saying the same thing here.
Energy, new more markets for, our various products. Our energy has to serve Quebec first and foremost. And I will continue to say until the day we vote that there is no economic interest for Quebec in seeing a pipeline across Quebec that would harm the environment, and we would pay for that very, very dearly.
Yet you're okay with accepting money made from oil and gas from Alberta. The hypocrisy here is just like this is beyond stupid, guys.
We would have to repair the damage from that climate change, and we must not allow ourselves to be influenced by the West's desire and dream to get their oil to the other coast.
You can't make up this level of stupidity. If you want to run the province like that, by all means, but you can't accept Alberta oil money then, period. No more equalization payments for Quebec until they get their head screwed on straight. Next up, we got the new street fentanyl czar appointed here, this guy, Kevin Brosseau. This guy's a former RCMP. He's been out of the RCMP for nearly 10 years, about 9 years now. Quick look at his experience: Associate Deputy Minister of Fisheries and Oceans. Same thing with Safety and Security, Transport Canada, Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and Commanding Officer at Royal Mounted Canadian Police, ending in 2016. So he has that ocean experience, because a lot of this stuff is, almost all this stuff is coming in from the ships into the port of Vancouver. The question is this guy paid off goon, or does he want to actually do what's right by Canada?
My question to you is that we know that Canada already represents less than 1% of the fentanyl going into the United States. Do you think we can realistically get that number to zero?
Getting the number to zero is in fact a goal and should be our goal. If it's 1 pound, 10 pounds, we all know the amount of deaths that possibly could represent. This is a national security and a public safety crisis.
We should be focused on eliminating the scourge that is fentanyl in this country and in the United States.
And have you spoken with Border Czar Mr. Holman about your appointment? Are you planning to speak with him in the coming days?
I hope to speak with him soon. In fact, I spoke with the ambassador of the United States last night, and she and I talked about getting to DC very, very soon to be able to have those conversations. I've already, of course, as you know, spent some time here at the border. I'm being briefed by senior Canadian law enforcement officials later on today and tomorrow to understand the current situation on the ground, and I look forward to continuing those conversations with my American counterparts very soon.
He's been out of it for so long, he doesn't know what's going on. He's got to get briefed. Aside from that, I got nothing else to say about this guy. I don't know anything about this guy, but is he a paid off goon? Is it the fact that, as I showed in the previous video, the Trudeau Liberals have been obstructing what the RCMP can see, obstructing their investigations? Is it just a matter of he won't have access to the proper information to see what is going on in our government, how it's connected to the cartels, Iranian regime, Chinese triads, all this dirty business?
As a former RCMP officer yourself, what kind of skill set does he need to bring to the table for this job?
Well, you certainly need to be very good at leadership and management, because you'll be having everybody, all different agencies will be working for you. There'll be the RCMP, it will be the CBA, it will be CSIS, it'll be the Coast Guard, because some of our borders is on the coast, and Immigration and Transport Canada. All these people will be working together under the umbrella of his direction. So good leadership skills, good collaboration skills, being able to that didn't work, let's try something else without getting too down on everybody. I think those are really important skills he's going to need in this role.
See how this pans out. I don't trust the whole situation here, considering what's on the line here and what's coming down the pipe. How the Trudeau Liberals have taken money from Chinese triads, crime kingpins in Asia, and we know that's where all this street fentanyl is coming from. Got Brad West, the mayor of Port Coquitlam, says Canada will not make a dent in the street fentanyl or the transnational criminal organizations that have made it their bread and butter without RICO laws. So Canada doesn't have these RICO laws that they have down in America, which punishes people up to 20 years for being involved in this organized crime. RICO laws, Racketeering, Influence, and Corrupt Organizations Act, a U.S. federal law enacted in 1970 to combat organized crime, allows prosecutors to charge individuals or groups involved in ongoing criminal enterprises such as mafias, gangs, corporate fraud rings, or corrupt political organizations. It's been resisted for decades, and we've become a safe haven for criminal kingpins as a result. Job number one for the fentanyl czar, get it done. And we got another clip here of Captain Schmuck, just a few seconds here. Listen to him being asked about if he talked to JD Vance, this is the vice president in America, while at the AI summit in France.
What was JD Vance's response when you brought up steel in Ohio? And did you two talk about anything else?
It was just a quick greeting exchange. I highlighted the $2.2 billion worth of steel and aluminum exports from Canada go directly into the Ohio economy, often to contribute to manufacturing that happens there. He nodded and noted it, but it wasn't a longer exchange than that. But it is.
What a loser. This guy has the opportunity to talk with the vice president face to face, and he does nothing but have quick greetings and drops us one statistic, and that's it. So JD Vance is from Ohio, and I believe that's why he pointed that out, the aluminum going to Ohio. This is deliberate by Trudeau and the Liberals. It's so obvious. They want to tank Canada's economy to make it better for Carney to run. So Trump is the villain here. There's another villain. It's not the crushing cost of living in Canada anymore. It becomes Donald Trump. This will change, though, once it gets closer to an election. People are going to start thinking again, what about healthcare? What about housing prices, etc.? But right now, they're just trying to keep poking the bear. We're starting to get a glimpse of who Marc Carney really is. I can't believe he came out and said he would use the emergency powers to get basically whatever he wanted done to push the green agenda in Canada. This is a guy who was the vice chair of Brookfield Asset Management, who's buying pipelines in UAE, Brazil, in the United States, pumping out 159 million metric tons of CO2 per year just from the one company equivalent to a third of Canada's entire CO2 emissions. Yet he wants to use emergency powers in Canada to force the green agenda down our throats. This is a dangerous man. He cannot be prime minister of our country.